Our next session is by an exponent in the field, C.E. Veni Madhavan, who has obtained his academic degree, BE, and from BITS Pilani. He was a senior professor in the Computer Science and Automation Department and retired formally in August 2014. He was a chairman of CSA department during 1998 and 2000. He was invited to the DRDO laboratory, SAG, New Delhi during 2000 to 2003. His current research interests are in computational linguistics and pragmatic cryptanalysis. He continues to work in the IISc on research and development projects in the area of cryptography and natural language processing. He is a mentor professor for major research projects on cryptography funded by the National Cyber Security Council at C.R. Rao Advanced Institute of Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science, Hyderabad. He is presently associated with several technical advisory tasks spanning government policy, academic and research mentorship. He has worked on many scientific industrial consulting and developed projects sponsored by the government and corporate sectors in this area. He has obtained in 2001 an award by the Mathematical Association of India for distinguished services in mathematics, education and research. He has also been awarded by IISc for excellence in research and engineering. To add to his credits, he was an associate faculty of the Center for Neuroscience in IISc. He was the chief executive of the Society for Innovation and Development. He is closely associated with the activities of the professional bodies like the Cryptography Research Institute of India. He was the General Chair for the Conference of ADCOM 2017 of ACSSS on the theme of blockchains and cryptocurrencies and the Chairman of the INAE Engineers Conclave 2017 on the theme of digital economy. He shall be conducting a session on cryptocurrency and passphrase cracking. We are privileged to have you amongst us. Thank you.
Stop me at some point because we are prone to keep talking. Actually, as you will see, first, my thanks to the Police Training College of Trivandrum, Kerala, for having me here. Mr. Tarakan, and through him, I got of this. It's a pleasure to be here and interact with people in the field about some things I do which could be of relevance to this whole area, and I hope we'll have fruitful interactions during or after this meeting. But all the same, I'm very excited about the prospects of, I just heard the last talk towards the end. Sorry I couldn't be here yesterday. Rest of the day I'll spend here. To know, I mean, we all have to join hands. That's about it. I mean, the law enforcement agencies, the policy makers, the government, the academia, the funding departments and so on. For a long time I've been associated with all this. I continue to be, in particular in my involvements and engagements with particularly the government agencies, in particular the DRDO, principally the Ministry of IT labs like CDAC, all the labs in CDACs, and then 2 labs in DRDO, and one in Delhi and one in Bangalore on the cybersecurity front, and also the intelligence agencies which deal with encryption, and the Ministry of IT which deals with encryption policies and so on, and also a variety of funding which they do on these projects. So I've been lucky or fortunate to be in the thick of things. So it's nice to be here. I will touch upon this. So my interests, like an academic, are very, very technical, particularly in the field of cryptography, which is what I've been doing for the last 25 years. And presently, as was mentioned, engaged in a major project which is running at the C.R. Rao Advanced Institute for Math, Stats and Computer Science in University of Hyderabad, working closely with the NTRO and the agencies on cryptanalysis. So this is short. So I'm keen. I'll be doing this for many more years, hopefully, and would be happy to engage in interactions of any kind when it comes to what we generally roughly call code breaking, but scientifically called cryptanalysis. Okay. So there will be a flavor of that in all of these things. So I just titled my talk after the circulation, cryptocurrencies was one interest mentioned, and then I added this business of what we call passwords and passphrases, and something about digital signatures and their relevance, all of them, in the context of essentially digital infarctions and coping with digital problems. That's a pitch. Of course, in the process, there are many things which are of interest to me, which go on. I thought I'll just give you a glimpse. But obviously, I cannot do all of this in a short lecture, which can't a certain amount of dose of science and technology. But what I thought was, I'll just put them like this. And in any case, these are many lectures I keep giving all the time, all over the places. Like cryptocurrencies, about last 2 years, about 7-8 lectures I've given in various conferences on generally the trends on cryptocurrencies and blockchains. So there is a lecture PDF file, more recent one. I've just put it in the folder here. The second one on password and related cryptography, which is crucial. I'll tell you why. These are, and then a variety of cryptographic algorithms and how we deal with them in the cryptanalysis front. Encryption in the forward front and the breaking or cryptanalysis in the reverse front, where the password is not known. The secret is not known. So that's the situation in which we want to crack. And that's the task which generally the agencies and are engaged in. So I've been in this game for some time. So there is a broad spectrum, big document on that. So I put it here. It's a kind of a restricted access document with the NCSC I prepared. But anyway, the ideas are all in the public domain, but essentially we are putting them together. So I put a document which I was principally involved in preparing into this folder. And lastly, the more recent, something like an excitement in the computing world which is happening is to do with the arrival of what they call the quantum computers, which theoretically pose a threat to all the cryptographic methods in the public key space, as we call a threat, in the sense they are broken in some sense. So one has to reinvent new cryptography to handle them. And that has an import in the what's called as the signatures, the digital signatures. The digital signatures, which I think as users you might have, users and even technically active people use it quite extensively. The common person does not have direct use of the digital signatures, except the income tax returns we can digitally sign. But more important, more crucial transactions between interbanks and a variety of financial operations go on with the use of digital signatures, and it's a kind of a technical statement with lots of pinches of salt to say all those will be broken in the case of quantum computers which will be built, and they are unlikely to be here with us for some time, which is my prediction. But the point is that that's a new game. So there is a big lecture and courses and all that I'm trying to prepare, and also advice with some government departments and so on funding and things like that. So I put one more lecture document here. I'm just telling this for the organizers to say, if somebody in the department would like to use the documents, you're free to do so. And any quotations on that may be acknowledged. So this is the thing. But now I have 3 different talks, each of about 40-50 pages, and for many, what we call in academia, each can run to one course for one term with exams and so on. So I was wondering how to do justice. Let me try to be as much justice I can do in the sense of bring out the salient aspects of this. Cryptography, cryptanalysis, and its role and position in digital crimes or digital protection. So that's a pitch. So it will be lightly unstructured for this meeting. The structured material is all there. So this is all in the slide, the second slide. I will start with some anecdotal things and then go back to some technical things. Okay. Of course, people, best is to stop me if you have to check any questions or something like that on the spot, and then I'm willing to spend some time, or otherwise we can keep it for the end. First, okay, as the titles stand, let me start with this and Of course, like academia, if there is a board, it's very leisurely, one can start explaining this and more convincingly can be done. But let me do it sort of verbally without any other cues. There is a news item. Oh, okay. I think it will be little, no, fine, I'll leave it. That will be more, you pointed out the board, but I don't think I'll use it because it will take a longer time and all that. Anyway, there's a lot of slide material which I can take records to. But anecdotally, just 2 days ago, there was a reference to a person who, it's called a crypto exchange. A person, overseas person who died in India, and then he had about $150 million crypto coins in 3 different types of currencies. One called Bitcoin, which is mentioned, and then the Litecoin and Ethereum coins. There's a exchange and gone. So now gone means what? Of course, they are digitally protected, and apparently the digital signature is gone. Now this is one thing you can think of it this way. I'll tell you the technical parts we can handle, but in general I've seen the whole field, and as I get older, see more, that the socio-economic, political, strategic and management issues are more difficult to handle than the mathematical, scientific, technical and technological things. Because there we know with this much resources can be solved. Without that resource we cannot solve. So either way we know the answer. And the first ones that are become very complicated. So for example, this particular instance is to deal with a certain, what you call digital signatures have 2 keys. One called the private key, which I own, and the other thing called the public key, which I display. Now that's a fundamental difference between classical militaristic secret key communication, which is also used today, which uses only 1 key. Right? So that means you and I share a secret key somehow. How do we share? How do we generate, maintain, share is one issue. But having got it, you communicate with that key by an encryption algorithm, which is, in fact, in science, almost all of it is known. All the algorithms. That's why all these things are about 50-page document on the pragmatic analysis front, which talks about all the algorithms and things like that, what we should do. But essentially that's standard science world stuff. So you use the standard known algorithm, which is implemented in hardware, software, interface to your what's called as a medium device. It could be audio, video, image, video, and then transmitted over wireline or wireless communication, where the thing which go on the line or after encryption or bits, you cannot do anything with it without the key in any reasonable bounded resources. This is the whole idea of cryptography. So that's why we call them 64-bit. In particular, I will keep on saying 64-bit passwords, which again, I go back and say why these are connected and things like that. So for example, all of us use passwords, and increasingly it's becoming a troublesome thing to use passwords for many of our digital dealings. Each of us has some bank accounts, this thing, internet password, Wi-Fi password. It's so complicated, all of us have to write down, and sometimes trivial. So as individual, it doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, we all write down. I think all of us should write down and keep it at home. Because this particular instance person, it's claimed that it is not written down and not there. So imagine all our assets and simple, I'll give you illustrations where all your stock shares, fixed deposit receipts, everything, digitally, they're only digital archive, it's been signed by somebody and that thing is gone. The signing key is gone. To enter the system, usually you use what's called as a password. The password and the signature key are different. That's why they merit separate treatments in a cryptography sense. So they merit as 2 different chapters. So typically, the passwords are supposedly held here, okay, what's called as what you know, and the biometrics, which are what are called what you are, and something like an Aadhaar or some other thing which is maybe a secret, it's what you have. So this secrecy revolves around holding 3 pieces of information, individuals or organizations and so on. So the other things being asset which is de-linked from, they're there physically, like a token or a dongle or a key or an access card, everything is physical, it's there. Mobile phone is there. But the password which is held in what you know is there inside. So that's the only difference. So the passwords are something which is very reliable, provided we handle it carefully. But we need to have many of them. So in general, they are not long. And in general, all of cryptography which revolves around passwords are about 64 bits, 8 bytes, 8 characters, okay? Or at best 16 characters today, which is 128 bits. So generally cryptography of dealing with passwords and so on, to generate keys, they're what are called 128-bit ciphers. The encryption of what we call the bulk variety, this part of the password equivalent password which you give about what you know as a secret or any other secret form which you present is used for what's called authentication accuracy. Okay. After that, you perform encryption everything using a certain key which is called an encryption key, and generally usually the encryption key is generated using the password, and that's how most systems work. So in some sense, the starting seed for all activities is something to do with a secret which we call password, passphrases, whatever, not too long, held. Best way to hold is not to put it anywhere, which is only here, but of course by duress, by techniques, this can be grabbed as a different matter. Okay, password can be forced to be accessed, but the idea it's not written down, it's not in a physical device, and so on. That's about it. Short, this is the idea. But what happens is the cryptography doesn't rest with short keys. It works with actually immensely long keys. In the case of what we call bulk encryption. By bulk encryption versus what I call shallow, is about the stuff. Say for example, the SMS or a tweet or something we encounter often, or an email for that matter, even slightly bigger. All of these are short. They are all text short messages. Okay, that's one. But imagine if I have a lot of data, techniques, analysis of each one of these. But in a short leg, I would like to be more extempore, which I mean to say, the content which is to be held secret comes in the following forms: textual form, short or whatever, short messages, and then some documents, which is text, okay? Then speech. Why you say in this order is in terms of a certain what's called as a bit density, in terms of the throughput in which they are generated and handled by machines, they have increasing volumes. So short messages by nature, it's very short, 160 characters at best and all that, about 1000 bits, less than 1 kilobit. Okay. Speech, for every millisecond, you generate about a normal speech conversation, a telephone conversation, for a few minutes will get you about a few thousand, maybe a megabit or something like that. Just imagine, a million times or 10,000 times a 100 bit or 1,000 times a 1,000 bit thing. That will be the speech. Now, an image, which is as we all use with the image in any video any camera, and increasingly imaging is accessible to everybody because of the smartphones being available and cameras becoming extremely small. And one of the which technology is running, it's like sprinting, is in the visual media technology. All cameras and image capture devices, maintaining devices, rendering devices, everything is becoming faster, better, cheaper, and so on. But the volume is very big. For this same, what we call in mathematically and scientifically, information content. You want to say something, say it in text. It's brief, succinct. If you say it in words, in speech, it will occupy 1,000 times more, the same information. And if you say it in a picture form, a document in which the thing is scanned and put there, for example, it occupies 100 times more. So no wonder, for example, when you take images, pictures, with all the best cameras today and all that, they hog up the space. It varies from 2 megabytes to 5 megabyte. one picture. If you open the folders, you see you have thousands of pictures, but each one is a 5 megabyte, and so a few gigabytes you will use up for pictures. Next comes voluminous waste is the video. Okay? A running video is 100 frames of thing is 100 pictures. Okay? Why I call it voluminous waste is all of these things. The same information, there is so much redundancy and fluff over this, which wastes bit space. Okay. Now, on top of these things, the science of communication, computing, and cryptography all have to do with a variety of ways of handling this deluge of bits. So, encryption. Okay? So, you have a secret key, you use it to drive some large key production system, which is called a key generating engine, which is built in automatically in many of the cryptographic algorithms which are used and built into devices. For example, all the phones we use with GSM come with an encryption possibility. I say a possibility because it's not a default, but if it is there, it becomes a complication. In fact, this is one of the complications we are trying to address for the law enforcement agencies and so on. The idea is that GSM mobile phone communication by default can be encrypted with an algorithm called A5, which will, on the fly, will encrypt the speech. So in transit, the bits will be encrypted. So if somebody captures something in transit, what do you do with that? That's what's called as a code breaking. So this similarly for every kind of communication. In fact, some of them a little scary in the sense that there are something called sat phone. The GSM communication systems work with something like a part land link and part terrestrial, part over the air, HF and UHF, but with this towers which will beam, receive, cells manipulated. It's something like in a geography. It's in a terrestrial geography. So, whereas satellite-based communication, which is directly possible, just as our television is directly possible, is using what are called sat phones. And these sat phones were once upon a time difficult to acquire and more difficult to get services because by phone or a device, the transmitting device can directly talk to a satellite and the receiving device can directly receive it. Obviously, there are legislation and legal obstacles to that. So obviously, every satellite you can't have just access, but there are some international satellites like Inmarsat and Thuraya from Indonesia and so on, and then maybe some rogue satellites, which nobody knows, which give the facilitation for sending and receiving as long as one pays the money. It's not cheap, by the way. It was not cheap. Now, the thing is with increasing communication bandwidth available and the best is the devices coming in, the things are becoming cheaper. So, for example, you need to have a handheld device which is called a sat phone, which is like, if you remember, some of you, 25 years ago, we had this first mobile phones in India, this big, black, big thing like this. You can't put it like this. It was bigger like that than that. Now it is becoming smaller. That is one about the device. That's not the issue because you need to have satellite transponders, transceivers on both the equipment and all that. But the bigger problem is to get service provision through the satellite up there. So that's where I said a couple of satellite systems in the world give that, but there are some rogue satellites which apparently give that. But obviously this kind of thing is used for nefarious activities because each of this is expensive. Imagine, I think once upon a time, I remember still it used to be 16 rupees per minute or something like that for our mobile phone once upon a time, 20 years ago. It's like 50 rupees per minute or something you pay for a satellite link and so on. Obviously, this is done for certain purposes by certain types of people for certain type of work. Okay? The thing is, more than this whole thing goes encrypted, and that's a default. And default means it's built in already in those sat phones, and the sat phones are becoming cheaper. It's possible, and so on. So I'm just putting a general technological scare of saying that probably this country also there are a lot of people who try to use such things, and this is of concern. But now, so there is something about legislation and all that which can prevent the uplink and downlink of sat phone based frequencies and so on. Or if tracked, something can be done. But if not tracked, that's the thing. And anyway, similarly, of course, same thing goes on with the GSM. But all of this, the reason I want to come back to was a technical thing. This send a large number of bits with encryption. Now, when you do a large number of bits with encryption, things slow down. Whereas small number of things with encryption, it's extremely fast. So, text, short and crisp, encrypted is one thing. Speech encrypted is in GSM standard telephony, available on mobile telephone systems. And SATCOM possibly for bigger. And then you can do with images and so on. But each time the images are encrypted, one feels the pinch because it takes time. Okay, so now this is, I would call it a broad scenario of encryption, passwords. There is something about authentication, that is, the systems have to take care that the person who talks to the other person sort of are endorsed. And there are several types of endorsements which the people in the protection industry, people who want to give cyber protection to your communication systems, your infrastructures, your links, have to assure. And conversely, the people who hack into systems for whatever reasons, and the breaking, lawful breaking, let's say lawful interception and breaking, whatever they do, have to contend with situations of the following kind. Person A talks to person B through some intermediate systems. That's the situation of all of communication with computing, be it terrestrial, what you call physical links, like fibers or cables or whatever, and then over free space communication, A to B. The intermediaries, or what called service providers, do the following businesses of authentication. There will be two service providers, the transmitters and service station, the receivers and servicing system, and the receivers equipment. So this is generally the communication scenario. So the authentication of every party in between is genuine, is done during what are called handshake. So this requires a certain type of cryptography, which is called authentication and key exchange and key generation and all that. During that stage, certain types of keys are generated so that both parties have the same type of key. And then after the handshake thing is done, the actual communication, when it begins, the things go encrypted with that key. So by that time, the key is there in both places, this idea. As opposed to this is the entire arena of what are called cryptography, which worked on certain different premise, which is just that the person A and B who want to share secure communication through encryption need to have a key, but that key need not be exchanged over the line. In fact, meaning, if I and any pair of people have to exchange a key, somewhere they have to talk to each other in some channel, which is secure channel. So face to face, or courier, or some armed guard send a post or a letter or something, which is how the military systems operate. What is called as a symmetric key, generated, exchanged by some secure out-of-band means, because you can't exchange a key on the same channel which is supposedly vulnerable. So you exchange it either face to face or through a very trusted system, like in the military. But as opposed to this, in a world of what we call people talking over inherently insecure channels, which is internet and public channels all over the place, and between people who don't even know they exist, okay, anonymous entities, or for all that matter, I say I am A and you are B. How do I know when you are talking in the black? So this is what happens quite often in all the social media problems and so on. But essentially, because the authentication business is not there, the way public digital interchanges need to happen. So you cannot stop. So now to take care of both these situations, there is this methodology of what is called public key cryptography, which just had a pair of keys. And this is a very phenomenally brilliant discovery by some mathematicians, and it's now a standard. It uses something called Raivis Shamir Adleman RSA cryptography as one standard, and other systems called elliptical cryptography, and when it comes to smaller footprint like mobile phones and so on, and then a variety of things which work on smaller and smaller devices, RFID tags, cameras, lots of things. Nevertheless, the idea is simple. The idea is just every person has a pair of keys, one called a public key, another called a private key. Okay? The public key is put in a telephone directory like our address and telephone number. The private key matching that is held safely with you. Now, there is some criticality about that. Again, once again, password will come, normal things we use, because imagine a secret. Now these are large, these are 1 kilobit and above. There are some standard specs and all that. These standards, technical people try to break and things like that. But today, the security lies in about 1 kilobit, 1024 bit, we call it. So this is slightly different from the 64-bit reference ballpark mental thing you can keep. 64, 128, that's the thing what we use for bulk encryption using symmetric cryptography. It is well known, and lots of material on these are available. The difference between this and the public key cryptography is it requires a large sized keys, 1 kilobit and above, a pair of them, one public, one private. That's about it. Now, how it is generated and all that, there are systems. There are systems. In fact, it's all part of the IT Act, as was talked about previous time. What type of specification should be there? How, depending on what kind of operations they are used, what you call regulated banking, financial, all those operations, you generate them through a system of hierarchy of trust, starting with the control of certifying authorities in the Ministry of IT in Delhi, and then zonal certifying authorities and other use certifying authorities and so on. So these are all established. But essentially, just imagine I just ask a certifying authority, like income tax office, when you submit the return, you can get a public key, private key free for that purpose only, because there are some money to be, charges to be paid, which depends on the usage. But private key, you keep it secure. So 1 kilobit now you don't remember. You actually put it on a hard disk or a CD or a
Sir,
USB.
Sir, if I get your public key, can I read your message?
If you just give a?
If I get your public key, can I read your messages?
No. Okay. Okay. You can't. In fact, that's one of the big problems which people are trying to attack. If public key is given, obviously you should not be able to get private key. That's why the 1024-bit. And again, one simple statement, it depends on the difficulty of solving a very simply stated mathematical problem. Factor the 1024-bit number into 2 primes, of which that's a product. It is written as if n is the 1024-bit number, is equal to p times q, where p and q are primes, each of 512 bits. That is easy to get. Getting 2 primes of 512 bits is no big deal. So all of this I have my machine itself. I do a lot of things people do. But after multiplying, if that number is given, if you can, what we call the factor them, the whole thing is gone. In fact, the last of the quantum computing is about that. There is a fear from a very theoretical paper just published 25 years ago that factor can be done. Okay? So there is no way of getting the private key without doing that. Okay? The one way of getting the private key is it is in a USB or a CD or something, you steal it. Okay? I hope that answers your worry or concern, or you want more?
My doubt is that I have a public key. How I transfer to my colleague or other officials?
Okay, No, that is easy. That explanation is easy. Okay, each one pair has a public key, private key. Like my Aadhaar number is my public key, and the corresponding private key corresponding to the Aadhaar. Imagine it will be the same 12 digits. Aadhaar is 12. Another 12, random digit, 12, not now 12, 1024 bits, which is 330 digits. I keep it in my home. Way things work is very simple. Whenever I want to send you a secret message, okay, I take your public key and encrypt that by some algorithm. Encryption is some algorithm. Okay. You just imagine multiplying, dividing and all that. And I send it to you. Okay. Now, wherever it is lying, knowing that it is to you, that it has used your public key, this cannot be opened unless the private key corresponding to your public key is supplied to the simple algorithm. Okay. And the private key corresponding to your public key is supposedly, secretly only with you. Very safekeeping. That's the security of it. This is the encryption part. So anybody can send encrypted message to anybody, and only that person can open. And no amount of intervention, mathematically, theoretically, algorithmically, computationally, can break it. Except experts like us are trying to break it. Okay, that's one. The second part is the even more interesting thing. This is to do with signatures. Okay. See, normally when you sign a bank check, I pay your name some 1,000 rupees. The content is not important. I mean, content is not encrypted. It's open. I mean, I can leave my checkbook in the office and go. I've signed it, crossed. Nothing can be done. My signature is there. Okay. It is used for verification. This check is presented at the bank. They verify that the signature is same, comparing it with a template. Okay. That's all. So signature as a purpose is meant for what's called as a non-repudiation in a court of law. That is, neither should I deny later on that I have signed the check for you, nor you bring a forged check saying that I signed a check for you. So this reputability, non-reputability is the functionality for which the normal physical hand signatures, the digital signature exactly provide that. And that's why the CIT Act has accepted that. Cryptography has said that it's a non-reputable. So, in fact, as we say, all this cryptography and all have to do with giving you functionalities like this. The encryption gives you functionality of privacy, confidentiality of information. The things to do with passwords and other things which are related to that, technically called digest and so on, they give the functionality of what's called the content has not been tampered with. So now you see this is a little different. Assuming for the moment that check business, both are okay. In the digital world, the one thing about digital world is everything can be copied. That's a fundamental tenet, we'll take it. With absolute, in the physical world, the copying, there is something lost, and which is what is used to, accuse or provide justice, okay? Or establish proofs. In the digital world, there's nothing like that. Everything is copied exactly bit to bit. That if one bit is copied, modified, there is something garbling happens, is the function of this, what is called integrity checks. So this is provided by variations of passwords and hashes and so on. Meaning, in the check, I say, pay you 1,000 rupees, and you just put one more zero there, or change that 1 to 4 in the physical. Probably it may go unnoticed if it is very cleverly done. But in the digital, it's so easy to do, but it should not be allowed. So there are methods to do that thing. This is another functionality of what we call integrity checks. Then authentication is something for different purpose. You want to exchange information anonymously, you don't even know each other, but you want to be sure that we are talking to each other and all that. Then you have protocols, which is very standard in all the protocols of, let's start with protocols of what we use at home called Wi-Fi. From any of our phone access point to home access point to the internet and so on. So from Wi-Fi to Bluetooth to every kind of what's called communication setup, short range with this Bluetooth phones from here to here, Bluetooth speakers, all kinds of things. Then what are called factory automation devices like RFID systems. You put a monitor there and then it monitors tags on systems, these kinds of things. Then very proximity access systems, smart card systems. Every communication system, there is what is called as a mutual authentication and stuff built in. These are part of the handshake protocol. So this functionality is called authentication of entities, devices, all kinds of things. And this is going to be another mind-boggling problem in what the future computer technology people keep advertising as Internet of Things and so on. I think law enforcement is going to have many more problems eventually. They have a lot of problems always, but newer and newer technological problems with all kinds of autonomous stuff, with digitally enabled sensors, like the drones and autonomous vehicles and whatever. There are complications of variety of kinds. One, they function well about safety, all those things is one other. But willful manipulation to perpetrate some nefarious or against the law activities is something to be concerned about. In order to do that, there are these things like come to a little bit of a rescue. You can't send a message to something to say, start your camera there, or stop the traffic signal there. All kinds of things, if they are automated, can be done in principle, but it can't be done in theory by this very strong, robust authentication systems built in. Okay. So that means person A to person B should be first agreed that they are talking to each other in camera, but machine B, a device A and device B, before talking to each other should authenticate each other. So many of these things are built in. These are to do authenticate. Lastly, the thing to do with non-reputability and functionality. So the public key, private key pairs are used very principally in that, and also a large bit of authentication, which is the nicest things to happen because of modern cryptography of last 25 years, 30 years. Because the encryption is classical, but devices and things are more powerful. The ideas are classical. See, after all, encryption was used heavily in wartime cryptography and any secret exchange between militaristic systems. Okay. So it's only recent, the public systems, recently, I mean, last 3 decades or so, one needs this securing digital information. Okay. Now, I'm just got. I thought I planned it this way. About half the hour I speak like this, and then I shift to a run through of the slides to show what are all there, because some of it, not to be worried about the technical depth and all those things, but essentially to what it contains. So, just to come back to the first problem. So I will not touch upon this thing called quantum computing, because that's it's just very recently, it's only drawn attention in the last 5-6 years in the world, and like everything, certain parts of the world are doing extremely well, faster and better and more powerful, in particular the United States, the China, and then the Europe, and then these places, they're taking a real leap. Sometime sooner or later, my prediction as soon as 10 years, as late as 25 years, you will get powerful machines of the kind which will be a threat to today's crypto. That's my prediction, but it's getting very technical. I'll leave that. The first 3 are related to the subject matter of discourse here. The cryptocurrencies, the title I said, let me just say a few words about it, and then it's related to all of this cryptography in the following sense. The slides have more details, but I'll not elaborate them. Idea is like the following. Okay, some of you would be familiar with the generally what's called cryptocurrencies. My lecture titles keep changing the last 3 years. Several lectures I've given on. And then, of course, there is something called blockchains, which is the computer science way of looking at what is called as distributed database systems, with additionally supported by what's called public verification, scrutiny, acceptance of the fact that the data residing in different places is indeed correct, and a way to do a public ledger of all of these things, changes made, everything in every place, so that in a truly distributed sense, people can be sure things are okay. I mean, it's a very, very, very naive, loose words, but technically, the enabling things are to do with what are called distributed database systems with ledger methodologies and hash chain based proof systems. To me, as a math science person, the fundamental core of the things is what I distill, and then you can build a lot of things on that. There is something called hash chains, and that's central to a variety of things about passwords and cracking passwords and building money chains and coin chains and providing what are called the chaining mechanisms in blocks of data which can be proven to be incorruptible, and hence the name blockchain. So the chain comes from something called hash chain. The hash comes from something called a digital integrity check. And there are cryptographic ways of doing it. So that's the connection. The blockchain, the buzzword which is today, has nothing to do with, it's simply to do with blocks of data chained by hash functions. Now, some years ago, of course, this is a brilliant piece of some anonymous entity, announced that you can make what are called coins, digital tokens or coupons or coins of a certain denominational value, which anybody and everybody can join in a way to make it and agree upon what's called as a monetary fiscal system. Okay, now actually it's a brilliant idea. And why it's a brilliant idea, even economists and finance people would agree, while only it's the law enforcement legislation and other people were worried about the aspects of cryptocurrencies, which are different. But fundamentally, the economic and finance angle of currency, which in my title nowadays I call cryptocurrencies, not that way, crypto and currencies, which means the crypto is good, currency ideas are good, but together they are bad. For the reason why even technical specialists fail to understand why that's bad, in a general sense, I will say, it's because of that. Sometimes these two good ideas come together, for some reason they are not acceptable. Okay, the idea, I would say, this is probably written up in somewhere or the other, but 300 years ago we didn't have money. There were local money, just probably maybe 300, 400 years ago. There was money, notion of money. But this gold business which had started when people started digging for gold, and then any precious commodity which is scarce and you get it, and the people who get it become big, rich. Okay, that's the idea. And as long as that's one. Of course, there's no use if you just get a precious thing unless it's appreciated. It is useful for exchange. Okay, so it happened with gold. These two things: a medium of exchange, a store of value. All this fundas they call with economics of money. It all happened with gold, and that's how the monetary systems developed about 200 years ago. Let's call it maybe some years ago. So wherever it is, because so this is one thing about any monetary system. The cryptocurrencies idea is precisely that the original, we might call it a laudable motive, was to worry about gold. So much so it's called a digital gold. Okay, suppose you can make an entity which is rare. Okay, it is only finite supply is there. It is rare, and then it is available as a kind of a what is called the egalitarian, democratic way of going and taking it. Okay? If only country allows us to mine here, Bangalore, and take gold, there won't be any. Maybe I go to Kolar and mine gold, there also won't be any. It's all depleted. So if that is freely allowed, then everybody will go and make money. Okay? So this is the whole idea of thing they started with, digital gold. Now this is, I will say a few non-technical things like that, because the technical things are little very interesting to me and deep. But to appreciate that, you need this idea that one must be convinced that as long as in the digital world I can create this object called a digital gold, which is rare, which also has a finite cap. See, after all, the gold has been dug up all over the world now. There's no gold to dig. So whatever is there has been dug. We'll assume that. So there is a finite supply. The one last technological catch is that it's all fine to say it's just go and dig and pick up gold. Okay? If that were so, everybody would have become rich. And in fact, the ultimate idea is that everybody should become uniformly rich. You know, they're all very laudably goals, but this digital cryptocurrencies initially started off with that kind of a motivation. Okay? So what is preventing that whole thing would be, as you dig for more and more gold, it becomes scarcer and scarcer, so it becomes more and more difficult to get. So this cryptocurrencies philosophy is to say fiat cash. Once again, actually, you know, the last one you made the comment which I'd say, our country is reasonably clever at many levels. One thing they said was cryptocurrencies are not legal, okay? But the RBI had said they are not illegal either. Okay, so now it stands. Even today, it's why? Because there are several currencies which we all use, which are of the same flavor. They are neither legal nor illegal. All coupons, all Sodexo coupons, all the tokens and coins and issues in hotels and monthly passes issued by some chota mota, guys, where you pay 1,000 rupees and you get something. I would say including talk time, for which you pay only. Fortunately, talk time can be used only for talk time. When you pay 1,000 rupees, you can use it for talk time only. But that talk time, if you and I can exchange for something, for coffee, it will become an instrument of, medium of exchange. There is nothing wrong. But local systems, there are many token, coupon, coin-based systems which work. Okay. So, in some sense, private currency is not a taboo. Okay. So, that's why you can't say it's illegal. The only thing is, there are two things. One, of course, if what purpose one uses money for is not the concern of who makes the money. Okay. Anybody can do anything with the money, whatever. That's a democracy and so on and so forth. So there is some anonymity associated with the digital currencies, because the fact that digital data is very fragile. It can be copied left and right and manipulated, provided the safeguards are not duly implemented, technological things like cryptography and so on, which sometimes can be crooked. Okay, but because of those suspicions, it's possible that the digital cryptocurrencies are utilized for transactions which are not legal. So that's about it. The money is not legal or illegal. The purpose of the transaction for which you use could be legal or illegal. That's about it. Okay. Now, that happens even with cash or something like that. So it's an equivalent of that. Other than that, it's a very sound system of blockchains in which starting, now this is like gold, people make coins, then it's an amazing thing that in 2009, the first Bitcoiner started. They said there will be, I think, something like 120 million coins after 100 years. Okay. Now, each coin will be produced at a certain rate. Okay. So this is for what's called mining or minting a coin. So this mining coin is exact analog of going and digging for gold. So as you dig, increasingly it becomes difficult to find more gold. So it becomes next year harder, the next year harder, and so on. But cryptographic hash function, which is used, can be beautifully, crafted. Data and numbers I have, my other lectures I give. So there is something called a 72-bit security which is going on now. It's finding some function value which is 72 bits of zeros in the beginning of a 256-bit string. That's a coin. That's equivalent to a coin, Bitcoin, and similar thing in other coins. Now, this is tomorrow, after 1 year, I make it 73 bits of leading zeros and rest don't care. It becomes 2 times more difficult to find that. So this is how it's graded, and this can be just modulated by a system of self-governance. It's like putting some speed breakers on the road. If people are running very fast, you put a small speed breaker. If you go very fast, then you put a still high, something like that. So you can put a governors and speed breakers and so on in the minting process digitally by appropriate choice of cryptographic hash functions.
This blockchain, this thing, who will decide whether it is 72 zeros or 73 zeros? Who has the authority to make it 73 or 73?
See, there is no need for an authority in principle.
No, but somebody is doing it. The people called miners will do it.
See, the thing is, okay, now there is a system, the miners will, that is the computing equipment which is held to determine the new coin will get some reward, that's one. But once that thing is there, it's posted, okay? Now that coin belongs to something and all that. Now, this management of this enterprise is somebody has to do. But the second part of it, which is called a blockchain consensus, is the beautiful part which is used in blockchain philosophy for other applications, which is well guided, but I think it's a bit of a hype. But that apart, the second part is everybody starts minting. Okay, so you dig in Kolar, you get rights in Kolar. I dig in Ramnagaram, and somebody other gets some coins. So, but how do we agree that the coin you got is actually gold? You got 1 gram of gold. He says, I've got 1 gram of gold. Somebody has to do that. Now, this is by all the people. So this 1 gram of gold is sent around all the places. So now digitally it goes like that. Verification of indeed that this is called proof of work. Now, since you raised it, this is actually posing a problem in blockchains and all that. This proof of work is another nice concept in cryptography related, and you can grade the function such that if somebody comes and says, I've got 1 gram of gold, you just have to ask him to solve this problem and tell. It's as thing like that. And and he knows that if I can solve that problem, it is equal to 1 gram of gold. That is that 72-bit thing. So verifying that answer is easy, but getting the answer is difficult. So you will have to sweat to get the answer, but having got the answer. Now this is a distributed way, this is verified.
Does it mean that people with more computing power?
Yes, that is the pity. That's the problem. So finally, just to close that part of the story, the laudable part of it, which the original propounder will say, why state currency, why fiat currency by one state, why not have a cryptocurrency? For example, in fact, I like the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the best proof of work amidst the Litecoin by name. See, all this is complicated. Technologically it got complicated, but one did not anticipate that this control over how to find a coin will eventually the rich men. It's like it happened in the gold also. And that's why US is richer. I mean, they could dig more gold than others because you had the wherewithal to go dig, pick. And the joke says, first nobody initially they didn't know the weight of gold. You go with the 5 horses to bring 1 ton of, the horses die. So later on, you need 1,000 horses to get 1 ton and things like that. They evaluated the train, railroads, everything. Similarly, the big compute engines which are used to do the proof of work for finding the next coin, unfortunately has got into the hands of some big mafia, compute mafia. But that's only a side part of it, but there are ways to work around. Instead of that proof of work, you can have what are called proofs of stake and variety of things. And these are being adapted to blockchains. See, the blockchain philosophy is similar. I mean, in principle, it had been there in many digital management systems, information systems. Like, for example, now everybody is talking of land records management. States like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, they're all well into having IT-savvy implementations of blockchains for this, particularly land record, then health, everything. It is just that the first is, of course, the chaining of data and things like that, but what does it give? It's supposed to give this hash chain sequence, in particular the hash sequence and all that is, for me, I'm a passionate lover of this hash chain concepts with a variety of functions. But it gives you an incontrovertible proof mathematically that even a 1-bit change will what we call ramify. In 1,000 bits of data, you just make 1 bit to 1, instead of 1 you put 0, and then run that code, it will give you 500 bits which are all garbled. So anybody has a quick proof of saying something hanky-panky has happened. Now this is important for records and things like that which could be opened out for public scrutiny and for public consensus. So land records and things like that which are posted on this and this, anybody can go and verify in a digital system.
But is it applicable for land records or other government records whereby one authority initially puts out that record? One authority, the revenue authority
Yeah.
or somebody brings
Yeah.
out an original record.
Yeah.
So the hash function is sufficient to prove its integrity. Is it necessary? What is the logic of other people being asked to verify its integrity? Because actually there is no need.
Yeah. See, okay, I know you have hit upon some difficulties of this blockchain adaptations.
Because the blockchain is being sold as the new technology and they are being pushed into areas where they are not needed at all. Just for the hype, people are saying, we'll build you a blockchain platform on which you can build a lot of things. They get basically a lot of money for that. You get unnecessary lot of
I'm with you. Same thing, I won't pay money for blockchain development unless, by the way, I sit on a certain review committee for a government thing in Hyderabad on this. Sensible, salient applications or something may be there. So they called it again, this permission blockchains. The open, free, permissionless blockchain is what all the cryptocurrencies started with, ran into other problems. The blockchain world adopted the methodology of hash chaining, changing the proof of work to something simpler. You shouldn't have so hard proofs. To own a document, I shouldn't generate, I shouldn't sweat like digging gold, which is what, I can't go to this compute consortia to get a proof for my house kata or something like that. But essentially, they made it local. The local authorities, existing authorities, legacy and all that. Okay, I think we'll keep it for lunchtime. There may be some saving grace in the use of the blockchains. In that, at least post facto, they could all be on a public thing saying that you verify. The last part, if you verify the chain, everything is correct. To that extent, you take expert's view. So the common man hopefully will be happy, provided this can be done. But sir, this applies to marks. So how do I know when you put 87% and first that somebody has not changed it, mistaken, instead of 47 it has become 87, all kinds of things. So at least there is one way we are all saying, I come from academia, chain all the marks. So the whole idea is that if you change one by mistake, the problem is the adversary has to do a lot of work to cook up the changes all the way. So if you manipulate something somewhere, it will reflect in so many places, and it is not easy to do that in a technical way. So this is one assurance one gives for the chaining of these things by hashes and so on. That's the plus point of this. As far as the applications, there is a legacy system of management, control, hierarchy of trust, which has to be honored. So that's where it's working. So that's blockchain. But so okay, now since we are just at my last word on that, my take on, see this cryptocurrency, but all of this is going to have this problem, which I call a technical problem for enforcement or policing, surveillance, monitoring, detection, adjudication, evidence preparation, everything, is this business of opening up something for which you don't have access. Now, it was also mentioned previously, and also Trivandrum CDAC has developed some cyber-check suites and things like that, preparing forensic information and things like that. When something is concealed for public protection, it's allowed legally valid protection is afforded to citizens. But that same protection, if it is misused, the problem is for the detecting authorities to be able to open it. Now, this is where all of this crypto comes into picture. Now, cryptocurrency, all of them will have some last mile work on the digital signatures. So somewhere or the other, this hierarchy is there. By hierarchy, what we mean is in this example, which everybody knows, everybody has used, registrar's office, sub-registrar's office, signature, then section officer's signature, my signature, the buyer's signature, the seller's signature, all these signatures are there. And if all of them are sitting in one place with some hash chains, it's a good thing. But if somewhere the top of the hierarchy signature is cannot be verified, one is in trouble. Verification is not an issue, but signing is the issue, because that's where the private key is used. So it's possible that a signing key can be misused to sign checks fraudulently before date or prior or some post-dated thing after not having the authority to sign and things like that. So in some sense, these kinds of violations happen, and also where, so this is often the problem, I'm told, for LEA space. If digitally encrypted data or signed data is there, the let's call it accused, has to provide evidence of the plain text. Okay? Now, it's still not clear in a total sense in all situations what is the responsibility of the establishing the proof. Okay? Suppose you say, I confiscate this disk, everything is encrypted, open it. Okay? So one of the things people say is, people could say is, I can't open it because I don't know how it did. It's inside the system. Then you say, what did you do? Or there may be some password you would have used a driver to drive something to do that. But suppose that password is not there. Then this is at least okay for a physical system which is with one, let's say, accused. But what that goes on the line? Okay? Some encrypted information goes on the line, and here you type some plain text, supposedly innocuous looking email application, but a dangerous content. But that gets encrypted and goes on this either through the computer internet or through GSM phones. The key for that is not available at all. Now, this situation pertains to, there is another illustration I just allude to. Some years ago, there is a lot of international media attention in this world on FBI confiscating Apple phones from some killers in California somewhere, and then were unable to open it. Okay? So, the news. Okay? I have a lot of take on this cryptography, cryptanalysis, spy versus spy, that kind of game. But my take is different, but a lot of reading. But this is the news, let's say. Because iPhone, Apple says the things are end-to-end encrypted and we don't have access to key. Okay? So they were unwilling or unable to, apparently again all the news, FBI to be able to open it. Now, then the fun part is about a month it goes on in the US courts and things like that, the jurisdiction, the powers and all that thing. Citizens, the companies were fighting for citizens' privacy, and here again all of them join. All the companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, everybody joined, says we don't know what's happening and we just sell this and then they use it and we have to protect their privacy and we can't open it because we ourselves cannot open it. That's what they say. So this is the battle between the judiciary and the privacy and then the law enforcement and all that. But in the process, nothing happened. They scored some points. But after some time, they said they opened it. FBI opened it. And then again, there's a news saying with some Israeli company or something like that. Now, none of this I believe. As a cryptographer, I know how things go on. Not that I can do it. I can claim to say the following. Okay, now take it from me. This is maybe a message for my all friends in Delhi and others also. See, there is something called a root secret. In all of these things, the crypto establishments which we do, there is something about all the keys, passwords, and everything I use. It works all right, but something I supply to a machine, and the machine starts doing something with some algorithms, and it requires some data. So, in particular, end-to-end encryption systems, like this is my last 5 minutes. End-to-end encryption systems, which Apple gives, and more importantly, the this other, WhatsApp, correct. I just suddenly forgot the name. WhatsApp end-to-end encryption of text, voice, maybe images is what it gives. All of the claim is that they don't come in the way. Now, this is not to be believed at all. The original equipment manufacturer, ultimately, which has, for example, the way in a rough sense will work is, all of these have electronic chips. The chips are made from there, but the chips have an ID, and all chips have unique ID all over the world, all the time. It's very easy to generate because there are now 64-bit is allowed. So there's a huge supply, and then there is some what's called as a hardware true random number generator. Now this is not true, it's usually pseudo-random number generator. It generates a certain root secret or a key which is tied to the internal hardware which has a unique ID. So a unique ID, a unique what I would call a master secret is always embedded. So this I used to joke that God knows everything, and the secret for everything is there buried. Then there is a very type 1, 2, 3, usually a tertiary levels of key management and all that which happens, which is looking very complicated, here and there you move around, you generate something with this, generate something with this. All that happens there with something you supply, everything will happen and generate a key, and that will be used to encrypt. Such a philosophy extends to all systems. For example, WhatsApp or any system, today with the ease with which people send apps onto phones and then install things there. I mean, if somebody can install from WhatsApp in US onto my telephone number just on my machine, an app, and then end-to-end works, unbelievable. Because the military struggles to exchange keys. The only way they exchange is you write down the key, put it in an envelope, put it in a box, put it in a jeep, and send with armed guards to wherever you want. Best way. This, if you can do remotely, it has to be driven by internal algorithms and software with something supplied. So my suspicion always is install time, something which goes in, which ties to the hardware and that. Now, one might say, how is it easy or difficult? To me, nothing is difficult if somebody makes a company like WhatsApp or which makes, or Samsungs or phones which are made and so on. They are big dealings. Okay? There are only billions and billions of numbers. So Samsung makes billions and billions of phones. Each number has one IMEI and one random number generator seed value, which you give to WhatsApp, you sell this sequence. Facebook, you sell this sequence, and they install their apps and everything goes on. So in some sense, it's all manageable. Google's and all those people. So just the point is, somewhere the root of trust lies with that godlike agency, which is all powerful, which supplies the original tie up with the original equipment manufacturing, and the original software manufacturer have the access to these things. So this is the story. So signatures could be forgotten or lost. So to this also, I'm just saying 2 days, now it says $150 million are gone because the signature keys are not available. Either it is gone for maybe a different reason. That fellow went insolvent and he has vanished with the cash. We don't know. Sometimes these people take money and then they vanish, which is a very common thing. And now blame it on the technology to say, I can't retrieve your... it's just like going to a financier company and says, I don't have the key to my locker, it's all gone and there is nothing inside the locker. It has vanished with your money. So something like this could be happening. I think I'll close with this, but this is just, hash chain calculations I was doing, but it looks like this. Say, for example, the one in between is what is a 128-bit hash value, and something you start with a password and it changes to some other string, and that goes back and makes another hash value and makes another hash value and all that. So we make immensely long chains like this. This is a very small snippet of hash chain cryptanalysis for password cracking and so on. Just mentioned password cracking, but work is on to 64-bit stuff. How to cope with 128-bit stuff is unclear, but all of this, the ideas are based on chaining a sequence of random numbers of 128 bits or 256 bits, perpetually random, generated by a hash function, and then chaining them by a variety of things. And so that's it. And I just show the titles and stop. But I just wanted to draw some attention to something else which I have been flashing about cash. See, this lots of cash are there. Fiat cash, blockchain cash, Zcash, eCash. These are all different types of digital forms which are competitors to money. See, I used to put this thing to say cash itself in economic system, why it should be there. And I'm some kind of a votary for having that. It's about 10% of our economy, roughly, runs around the what is called the anonymous instrument, but state-supported fiat cash. So these are all RBI stats and some digs on taking back cash and then cleaning it up and bringing it back, and whether it will work or not. But the whole idea is that there is about, last one says, it was 16 trillion returned and then it became 18 trillion now, roughly about a year ago. So anyway, that's about 10% of it revolves around cash. It has good properties. That's why it revolves. Many good properties. It may have some inconvenient properties to law enforcement and maybe legislation, but that's nothing to do with the cash. See, use of anonymous instrument is for privacy, but if it is misused for something else, it's different. So anyway, this is about, and then there's a lot of things about different forms of cryptocurrencies which will come. But the thing is, just a short, quick closing prediction, cryptocurrencies will go. They were a big hype. Unfortunately, they have got many more obstacles from actually not only the states and governments and law enforcement. Their concerns are actually genuine. But public don't seem to have faith in this because they're the same properties. Initially, it should have been open, egalitarian. Now only few people control. So somewhere or other crypto exchange, if I buy bitcoins, I will have to shell out more money than what I might buy dollars and use it for eventually. And then it's not usable for transactions because people have not accepted it. So finally, a financial instrument will stay if and only if it is accepted for transactions by people. Okay? So fiat cash, physical cash, all of us will continue to use, even many of us like us, and I continue to use some small amount of per month fiat cash. So large economy revolves around that. That's one. So cryptocurrencies will die. Hype will go thanks to its own weight. So law enforcement doesn't have to be worried about it. But what might be worrisome, of course, what has happened in the past, that could be different worries. Just how they're structured and all that, there is a lot of it. And I will just say about what it, I'll go to the, see, there is something about high performance computing, and so this won't work this way. It's in a text document. Or let me skip it. I just wanted to say there's a message is that there are lots of crypto algorithms and so on which are used, and how much the effort is. It's a more of a text document. Tabulates also the amount of effort required to break a key of various types of algorithms and so on. So the idea is to prepare it's a comprehensive document of sorts of that kind. I'll close with that for want of time, but essentially to say that you need fairly key, breaking or opening up a system in the absence of the secret. That is the role of cryptanalysis, particularly for military communications, and certainly for maybe occasionally for this kinds of thing. Somebody has confiscated thing, does not have a key, and how to break it. The password is not known or to be tried and so on. So these require intervention of various kinds, knowing the algorithm, doing some math and stats and all that, and then putting to key search, reduce it to a certain manageable level by heuristics and so on, and then use high performance engines. So this is the goal we are at it, and I'll stop here and I will take any questions if you have. Okay. Okay. close this. So I can take questions and I stop. I don't know how to flash the slides. Yeah. Yeah. Start.
Do we have any questions here?
Yeah. So my question quite different from cryptocurrency. Say, in starting, sir told us that more channels to communicate. It may be secure or may not secure. But in our present scenario, we use GSM technology for communicating, for mobile communication. Is it secure, 100% secure? If yes, what is the technique behind it?
You call it GSM?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the GSM, in short, there is a protocol from what's called as a ETSU, European Telecommunication Systems Union thing, which has specified the following way. End to end, there will be first an authentication round. Okay? So your number and the other number, both base stations which are being connected will have these numbers, and then they will intervene, these two base stations in between, to send around certain bits to generate what is called as a transient key, which is a 64-bit key by means of two algorithms. If you want to know too many technical things, you can Google and find out the algorithms. A3, A8. These are called, and thing will send a challenge responses. They will send a random number here, and that will send a reply, and that will send a random number, this will send a reply. This, of course, the base stations will intervene. And using all this, they will produce some 64 bits each, which will be common. Okay? Next, immediately they will start the protocol for speech encryption, and the speech will be, there is a separate protocol, which will take uplink 114 bits packets. It will be packetized into 114-bit digitally sampled analog speech, and that digital thing will be encrypted by this using another algorithm, a whole suite of them. Presently, there are two which are useful for 64 bits. They're called A5/2.1. There's a convention for that. One is more powerful than 2. 2 is easier to break slightly, not just like that. New standards are coming up with 3, which is a 128-bit encryption. They will have to redefine a little bit, but basically you generate packets of 114 bits of speech both ways, one after, start and stop. As they go, this will be encrypted here on the mobile phone and go across. That's it.
But how can ISP tap, interrogate this internet service, mobile service?
They can't do anything. They don't do anything.
Law enforcement agency can interrogate this speech.
No, okay. This is where there is something called GSM interception and monitoring and cracking. Okay, so if you're in the game, we can talk about it offline. But essentially, there are some commercial grade equipment which are supposedly available, not true. Even first, the act of interception monitoring is itself, policing department would know about those things. But having got that, it's possible to track the entire stream of things go between assuming A to B, and that either live, real time, or offline can be cracked to find that key which will do the conversation which is going on is a separate part.
Recently, we have a complaint that someone has tapped by using an electronics device his conversation. Is it possible?
Can't follow. What is that?
By using without the permission of mobile service provider.
No. See,
Is it possible?
you mean encryption is there, not there? You're saying.
No, it's integrity, is voice
Yeah.
conversation.
No, voice session is encrypted. Even SMS is encrypted. See, there used to be a mechanism to switch off the encryption, okay? But that's not applicable. That can be done by what is called as a more active interception. See, passive interception is to put a transceiver and then grab near the base station, whatever, for suspected numbers. And that's how it works, what you call legal interception. Active is even further. You get in to act like a man in the middle and force the encryption to be off, and that's possible to do. I don't know whether you're referring to that, but by default, encryption will go on. It's possible to switch off the encryption remotely.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Even for giving us an insight into this topic, I would request Sri Anantakrishnan, ADG headquarters, to present the memento to Sri Veni Madhavan.